Screenwriting manuals often reduce the craft of storytelling to rigid mathematical formulas. Gurus insist that a script requires a specific plot point on page 27 and another on page 87 to be successful. This mechanical view of writing ignores the deeper human impulse. We need to understand why our species has instinctively used this specific shape for thousands of years. The historical record reveals a striking anomaly. The same structural architecture driving a modern blockbuster appears in the original Old English text of the Beowulf manuscript, written over a millennium ago. The three-act structure is an inescapable biological and psychological blueprint for how the human mind processes change. Dialectics is the hardwired mechanisms human beings use to organize chaotic information into an understandable reality. Cognitive processing begins in two steps. We exist in a normal, accepted state, or thesis, and then encounter a contradictory force, the antithesis. The brain seeks to resolve this conflict. It merges them into a new, evolved understanding called synthesis. Aristotle recorded this structural necessity in ancient Greece, observing that all complete ideas require a beginning, a middle, and an end. When an audience watches a three-act movie, they experience a perfectly scaled simulation of their own brain's cognitive processing. Act 1 represents the thesis phase. Here, the protagonist serves as our avatar for a normal, existing state of being. A protagonist functions as an avatar through empathy. Writers achieve this connection by giving a character an internal flaw, or a specific psychological lack. This deep internal flaw renders the protagonist inherently incomplete, leaving them in a fragile and unsustainable equilibrium. The inciting incident functions as a psychological trigger, a disruptive event that shatters the protagonist's equilibrium and forces them to form an active goal. A story begins the moment a character's flawed reality is irreversibly broken, forcing them to take action to survive the disruption. Act 2 maps onto the antithesis phase. This is the protagonist's terrifying plunge into an alien world, historically described as the woods. The antagonist serves as the literal, physical manifestation of everything the protagonist lacks, fears, or represses. As the vector split. As the protagonist fights this physical opposite, friction emerges between their external survival goal, what they want, and the internal flaw they unconsciously need to fix. The second act is a psychological crucible. It forces the protagonist's superficial desires to fail, so they must finally confront the flaw inside themselves. Act 3 represents the synthesis phase. The crisis and climax operate as the ultimate psychological test of a character's ability to adapt. The crisis point is a figurative death, where the protagonist must choose to let their old, flawed self die to achieve a new equilibrium. While this is the path of a hero's journey, running the exact same equation in reverse creates the structure of a tragedy, the dark inversion. In a tragedy, a character begins with a noble quality that rots into an egotistical flaw, eventually destroying their equilibrium. Whether a character achieves redemption or falls into self-inflicted ruin, the underlying physics of human change remain identical. This dialectic structure governs the breadth of human experience. This narrative logic determines how we interpret daily news and weigh evidence in a legal trial. John York argues that our minds search for a narrative arc to form opinions on innocence or guilt, essentially judging reality through the lens of story. Many artists and critics claim that following a structured three-act template destroys original thought. Radical modernists, including Pablo Picasso, utilized foundational rules to build the very art that eventually broke them. Mastering the form is the prerequisite for distorting it. The philosopher Friedrich Engels famously noted that freedom is the recognition of necessity. Resisting narrative structure misses the point entirely. Structure is the inescapable geometric language of the human mind. Storytelling is an evolutionary tool. We use it to simulate survival and adaptation in a dangerous, chaotic world. We follow a single arc, from a flawed beginning, through terrifying alien opposition, into a synthesized, stronger self. The three-act structure serves as a universal map, showing us exactly how to survive the dark woods and make it back home, permanently changed for the better.